Welcome back to Late Night Let's Podcast.
I appreciate it.
Hi, Gabe. How you doing? It's back to us
Not
being
too
us
bad.
again. Whoa, what was that?
Oh, I sent you something on Discord.
Oh, okay. That's
In spirit of the topic of today's video.
it's spirit of the topic of today's video. Should I show everybody else?
Uh, yeah. It's a clip of Charles Barkley talking on the TNT inside the NBA.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So you want
Charles
me to?
Barkley. Yeah. Charles Barkley is not the best when it comes to coming up with words. So
Uh-oh,
it's in
guys,
that
don't look at that.
context.
Let me go back to right here. Uh-oh.
What'd you do?
I so you know how Malachi was it went straight to the chat.
Man, them young boys coming.
Yeah.
They are down 3-2, but they send the series back to Los Angeles for Game 6 on Friday. That'll be a dandy to watch.
They do be coming.
I like how Shaq just looks at the camera because he just knows.
All right,
Okay, so
so this episode either it's going to be a two-parter episode or it's just going to be one mixed in. But the first part of this episode is going to be Gabe's school project, which is to do with that video he sent. Sports. We love sports. Gabe,
Yeah.
take it away.
we do love sports. So yes, I'm in a sports philosophy class, and it's so interesting. Will, my professor, it might be disappointed at me oversimplifying some of the concepts, but that's okay. But we're learning about like what differentiates a sport from a game, and if like video games should be considered games. And even today, we talked about like gamemanship, which I guess is different than sportsmanship, but
What's the
it's
difference?
all interesting. Sportsmanship, I want to say, it wasn't very defined in the chapter, and I did get to read it, but it sort of sounds like sportsmanship. It's sort of like almost like a moral code, right? Like that somebody sort of lives by, both in and out of the game. And gamesmanship is sort of like, or like I guess like a Mamba mentality is the example we came up in class. Like people that stop at nothing, not necessarily stop at nothing to win, but it's like they won't give up until the buzzer goes, no matter the odds.
Right.
So that's sort of gamemanship, but that sort of plays into the topic of today a little bit.
Well, not to cut you
And,
off here, but I did look up like the Google definition, and it says while sportsmanship promotes fair play, respect, and integrity, gamemanship pushes the boundaries and can undermine the principles of fair competition. Is that what you were going for, or is that
Yes.
something else? Yeah.
We technically define it as the philosopher House does it, but that sounds adequate for our purposes today. But so basically, in a separate project other than this one, I'm sort of arguing that gamemanship across athletes in small market teams, and I sort of have a vague definition of small market teams, and it somewhat depends on who you ask. It's sort of an opinionated thing.
What's a
by its
small market
base-
team, like the Jazz, or?
Yeah, well, they use baseball terms, but essentially it has to do with the area. It's a broadcasting term, is where
Okay.
it started from. So, like, New York is a big market,
Right.
and Cincinnati is a small market.
Really?
Which,
I mean, I guess it makes sense.
yeah, in terms of the original definition. But I would argue that the Cincinnati Reds, being the first baseball team ever, would be a lot bigger market than some of the other teams, like, I don't know, the Indians, the Tigers, maybe even like the Red Sox. Obviously, like, I think that they're bigger than the Cubs too. And I mean, I could be biased due to location, but like Yankees are obviously bigger.
Right.
I don't know, the Angels. There's it says the Astros. I would agree the Phillies. They're bigger teams, but it says that the Cubs is a big market and that the Reds is a small market. And there's something called middle market, which has the Diamondbacks and Mariners and the Mets.
The
Which
Mets. Let's go Mets.
which is weird that the Mets would be a mid market because by televising terms, they would be under the same district as the Yankees, right? So I don't know how the Nets and the Yankees aren't both big market, but it's up
There's
to
probably some background algorithms that go into that.
yeah, but I think it depends. Like the Cavaliers are apparently technically a middle market team, but I would argue that since LeBron's emergence and stuff like that, that they are at least they were a little bit inflated into a big market team.
Mm-hmm.
But the argument is sort of when you're down at the bottom, right? A small market team, you do have a better sense of gamesmanship because you sort of rely on developing players and teamsmanship and camaraderie rather than big market teams where they can just draft huge people and get big stars to come to their city and just rely on this talent, right? So that's what I sort of argue in the other paper, which is part of the reason why when I was sort of stuck in my room during COVID and there was the NBA playoffs and then 2K20 was free on Game Pass, I
Right.
got into the NBA a lot, right? After sort of being introduced into the sports world going to college.
Right. Okay.
And so I originally picked the Jazz just because the name, right? I played jazz, I was in jazz band. My mom's a musician, Captain Spencer's a musician.
Yeah.
So I picked it for that sake. But then I sort of got to like watching a whole bunch of games, and they were like working as a team really well, and you didn't really know all the players, but they were all just playing basketball, right? That's what it was about. So I just kind of fell in love with that. But I just want to ask you because you live in Ohio, same as me. The Ohio State Buckeyes are a pretty big deal,
Oh
and
yeah.
especially down in Dayton, there's the Bengals. But like you and your family root for the I don't know if it's just your family, but there's the Seattle Seahawks, which is a big deal,
Yeah.
and
That's
especially
sorry.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Yes. Don't ever say that again. And that was
Sorry.
my grandpa for some reason liked Notre Dame a long time ago, and that just carried in the family to my dad, and then to us. We're all Notre Dame fans.
But
Seahawks.
like
My grandpa liked the Seahawks because he won season pass tickets for whatever reason, and so he's like, "Oh, I'm a Seahawks fan now." Isaac, he just kind of follows the crowd, and they were
I
doing
see
really good with beast mode back there.
I see what you're saying. But like you sort of had you're at an impasse at one point in time where like everyone is a Buckeyes fan, right? And
Wow.
you obviously with I would say some like family pressures is what we'll call it.
Okay.
Had the choice between Notre Dame and the Ohio State Buckeyes. But like what sort of led you to staying a Notre Dame fan? Cuz like I could have been a Cavs fan aside from the fact that I hated LeBron, but
Right.
I chose to go away and find my own team and not just go with the Warriors because I had an out to be like, oh, my family's from the Bay and that's why I'm a Warriors fan. But it was just like the popular thing to be, and I didn't really care for that. I wanted to find a team that I liked for who they were.
I mean, I like the thought of just tradition in general, but when I was little, I do remember we had like we go to my grandparents' house for OSU versus Notre Dame games.
Hmm.
And we'd have like a big party about it, and we'd be having a good time. And I just remember how it was always like everybody else against like my dad, and then I was kind of clumped into there, and I kind of like set me off like, no, I'm a Notre Dame. I don't care what everybody else says. I'm Notre Dame, like my dad. That's us. And then we I don't know, we didn't really beat them all that often. We weren't good for a while, but lately we've been doing pretty good.
Hmm.
Yeah, it kind of just solidified like I'm a Notre Dame fan, and plus you have really good colors.
Navy and gold.
Yeah, but it's not like shitty gold like Toledo. It's like nice, cool, sparkly gold.
I don't think anybody looks at Toledo and is inspired by anything other than leaving.
They're like Glass City though. They have like one cool bridge, and that's about all they got going for them.
They did have a cool bridge. Dayton has a cool bridge too, though, right by the UD Arena.
I feel
It's not
like
quite as cool.
I feel like these days though, if you see a big bridge that doesn't look like normal, you're like, oh, that's a cool bridge. Like Sydney. I don't know if you know where Sydney, Ohio is, but they have like the big '04 bridge.
Mm.
Cool.
It's a famous bridge, surprisingly enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just intriguing to me because, okay, we'll go with the Reds. I honestly kind of think that baseball is one of the worst sports for a couple reasons. I think like when it comes to professional sports, they have like a different standard that they should set themselves to, and baseball does not change like anything ever.
I just
Like the
like the
football,
rules for going from minor leagues to the major leagues is not. It should be more.
yeah. Well, I think they should like football, right? They make changes annually, right? They'll update things, they'll change rules. They'll be like,
Right.
this has changed, right?
Which
And it's like an
baseball did try.
expectation.
The MLB did try to do it, or I guess they still have successfully done it, but it pissed off a lot of people.
But it's just so weird because they're all about tradition, tradition.
Yeah.
But it's like the pitching clock. It makes the games a lot shorter, and
Which,
I think it's so that people can actually stay through the whole thing and watch the game,
mhm.
and they're more likely to like be excited about it. I know traditional baseball fans aren't a fan because it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
like it to play out,
I
but
when I was an altar server a while ago, we would get tickets every year to go to see the Reds games. And I was
mhm.
excited to go because I was young and like, oh, baseball game. But damn, if it didn't just drag on to me, I wanted that. It should be a lot faster. I'd like to change, which I think is gonna piss off a lot of people. But
Yeah,
someone who
like
is
I
kind of more
watched.
impartial but still watches a little baseball, it was a necessary rule change.
Yeah, like okay, the Dayton Dragons. If you're not local to the area, you might not know who they are, or if you're not a Reds fan, but
Mm-hmm.
they're the AAA team for the Cincinnati Reds, located in the sister city in quotes, Dayton,
Mm-hmm.
Ohio, and they're kind of a big deal in terms of minor league baseball because they actually hold the world record for professional sports sellout games, and they stopped counting at 856 consecutive sellouts, which is crazy.
That is
But like
pretty sick.
the fan base is super loyal, and so I went there with my fiance,
Yeah.
and she's from St. Louis, right? So she's sort of indoctrinated um, into that franchise, which is the Cardinals, and it's kind of insane because it makes Cincinnati Reds fans look like they're not even loyal because they're just elitists over there. Like they baseball is what they breathe. So she's a diehard Cardinals fan, and so she doesn't care about minor league. So we went to the Dragons game, and we were both sort of like halfway through, and we're like, nothing's happening, and it was just kind of like boring. So we just left and just walked around town. Tickets weren't expensive because it was a minor league game, but it's like
Right. Yeah.
it's just I don't know. But
That almost
that
goes not to like throw you completely off topic. It almost ties into like modern media. How it's like if we don't have how everything kind of went from you should have these long videos of like showing exactly how this person's going through the whole time to what we have now, which is like the highlights. I think everything's kind of getting condensed more and more. Like we don't want the in between. We have to get the next big thing to happen.
I guess, and I think it also plays into like the type of person that likes each sport
Mm-hmm.
because I would say hockey is probably on like the left side, right? Like the most extreme, like stuff's happening all the time. I
Right.
think
I got.
basketball's sort of in that territory. I mean, they're arguing about making the shot clock like 20 seconds for the NBA. And it's crazy because things happen all the time already. Foul calls happen all the time. Free throws
Yeah.
don't take a lot of time. And it's just a very fast paced game. And they'll even take away rules that I kind of like better in college, like the one and one, which is I think it's within the first five fouls. I could be wrong because I don't watch college ball, so with a grain of salt. But I think like within like the first five fouls, if you miss your first free throw, you don't get a second one, right? And it sort of ups the penalty
Hmm.
for missing free throws. But it would take too long, is their argument to like do that. So it speeds up the game to just make it a process,
Huh.
which I think is kind of like I think it would add to the game to make rule changes like that. But it's all about fast pace. Like
Yeah,
that's what they wanted to do.
makes
But then
sense.
you get closer to the right side. Football is a weird mix. It's very much, you wait for like 20 seconds and it's a lot of strategy. You see a lot of movement and they blow the play. And sometimes, like when a play lasts longer than just 5 seconds, it's very exciting.
I think it's
But
a football's a perfect pace almost because like so when it's getting down to the end time, like every second the anticipation builds up. Like I know I was watching a lot of Bengals games last year, and a lot of them was it came down to like the end, like the final, what's going to happen, and
yeah,
I think the pacing is just perfect for building up anticipation in between plays.
yeah, I would agree because it's like the again, it goes into the people that truly like the sport, right?
Oh yeah,
And again, I sort of feel like people that I would say I'm a what do you call it? Just a common fan of football, right? I'm not like an in-depth super like, oh, I love football.
oh yeah,
And part
same
of that
here.
is I don't I don't know all the intricacies, right? Like people that maybe played in high school or are super into the game and can read plays and play calls and stuff like that. I think it adds a different layer to it cuz like let's say there's 9 minutes left and it's like third and long. Then it's like, oh, well, if we give up possession, then maybe we can get a chance at two more possessions depending on how the other team plays it, or do we try and stick out possession here? Like
Right.
they're thinking way ahead, like it's a chess game, which is kind of the beauty of it. It's like
Yeah.
a fast-paced strategy, and I do think football has a very good formula, and that's
Mhm.
part of the reason why it's so popular.
Oh yeah.
But then you get shorter, or like you draw out everything, and it's like baseball is still technically a game of strategy, but it's like I think it just sort of falls short a little bit because the Reds are
Yeah.
doing really well this season, right? It's amazing, but
Yeah.
I
Oh
never
yeah.
like
They're
really
doing really
watched
good for
it,
some reason.
and I think it's this one guy. I forget his last name. It's something Cruz, I want to say, but he's super good, and
Yeah.
he stole a lot of bases. Their pitcher's doing well, all that stuff, but it's like I think that from a viewership standpoint, maybe I can't appreciate it because I'm not a diehard fan, right? I'm not at that second level. I think from a viewership standpoint, where again, MLB wants to get more viewers, right? They don't care about diehard fans as much as average fans. They just want to get more people on the screen. I think having to make very quick decisions in that limited time span sort of makes you have to weigh out your decisions a lot more, right?
Oh yeah.
Because you could wait on the guy sneaking off first, trying to steal second, and then like fake him out and have him go back and then pitch the ball. But now you don't have time to make those decisions. And I think that, in the best interest of the viewer, that's a good change. But I think that certain sports, like for me, it's baseball, you sort of just go with tradition. Like I'm a Reds fan because that's where I'm
Yeah.
from, rep the
I
city,
right.
and
That's pretty much why I am.
same thing for like the Bengals for the most part. You just hate the Browns. Nobody
Hate the
likes the Browns,
Browns. You support the
and
Bengals, and you say they're going to do better next year, which happened
mhm,
for about a few years. We'll see if it keeps going, and that's all you do.
and then I think where it changed, like for me, is basketball. I've played basketball for a little bit in college, and that's when I sort of got into it. But it's like I can sort of read up plays, but like I have an understanding of the game on a better level because I've played it and I've like lived it a little bit. And so when I can imagine myself in those situations, I like the game a lot better. And it's to the point where it's sort of like it's an unhealthy obsession sometimes when it comes to trying to figure out like NBA drama and stuff like that in the off season, trying to figure out what's going on. And like for me right now, there's a trade proposal between Damian Lillard, who I don't know if you know who he is.
Nah, I don't.
He's like Steph Curry if you made him less efficient but gave him a bigger range.
Right. Okay.
So like he's super good. Steph Curry's probably the only shooter better than him in like NBA history. So he's really good. Um, but he wants out of Portland, Oregon, and they have a really small market. Okay, nobody wants it. But his whole thing is he's a really loyal and like devoted person. He always goes towards the hard work, and he doesn't avoid any of it. And he said he doesn't want to go to a super team, right? He
Okay.
requested one team. He wants to go to Miami, which isn't really a huge market, to be honest. But there's a lot of rumors that he'll go to the Jazz, partially because he went to college there and he really loves the state. And again, it's a team that represents his values as a loyal person that's all about hard work, dedication. And I think that when people sort of get past that first superficial level of just watching sports and really get into it,
Hmm.
I think there's a different appreciation for those types of teams and those types of players that sort of live out the game
Okay.
as it's supposed to be played, right? Like they have a true love for the game. So like Joe Burrow, he's a baller.
Oh, he's balling.
Everyone loves the man. T. Higgins,
I think
Ocho
they hyped him
Cinco.
up a lot. Like he's good, obviously, but I think he got hyped up a lot more than maybe. I think it's just because he was the first solid Bengals player they've had since like Ocho Cinco.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's almost as good as Patrick Mahomes. Truthfully, I think there's a pretty good comparison. I think they're pretty much equals.
You think so? I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, I like to watch the Bengals stuff. I can't get into all the when people talk about each player and what they do, what they said, and like where the people are then brought up higher than the sport, what people care about. I couldn't care less. I just want to
Yeah,
watch the sport happen.
and I think one of the things that's commendable about Joe Burrow is he doesn't really like talk about himself that much. And I think that's why people like him because he is so good and he does have this confidence and this swagger about him. But it's not like me, me, me.
Hmm.
It's sort of like the team, my teammates. I couldn't do it without Chase, Higgins, Boyd.
Which
It's like
there are
I,
also
I,
phenomenal players.
they are, and it's like he never like gets more praise than he deserves. And it's sort of like the I'm gonna stick to the grind, I'm gonna get better, we'll be him next time type of mindset.
Mhm.
And I think those are usually the players and the teams that like big fans of the game actually strive towards. And then I think it's obviously there are real fans that
Mhm.
are like super in depth that like the Warriors or the Patriots or whatever good team.
Right.
But I think usually when you have like that extra level that you like strive to really enjoy the game how it was sort of meant to be played.
Like
I
kind of going into like the Bengals coach last year when can't remember the player for the life of me. I'm sorry, everybody else. The one that got knocked out during the game, or not really knocked out but collapsed. And then the
is it
refs are like,
Damar
"Hey,
Hamlin?
yeah, Jamar Hamlin." And then the refs are kind of like, "Hey, let's beat back here in about 15, 30 minutes, whatever they said." And Bengals coach is like, "Hey, if you don't want to do this, we're going to leave. This is serious."
Yeah.
It kind of said, "Fuck you, refs," and folded.
Yeah. And I mean it's like he even it's like it's bigger than a game.
Hmm.
And I think that's so commendable. And I think that a lot of small market teams sort of have to be commendable like that. They have
That's
to be
kind of like all
super
they got.
respectable. And it's like that's what keeps players and fans sort of loyal there. Because, if you get drafted there, you're sort of stuck
Right.
unless you're super good. But usually, if you're that good and you're on a team like that, you kind of want to do it. Unless I can understand, like, let's say you're halfway through your tenure in the NFL and you're like, I want to win, right? And this team won't do it. I can understand that. Like, you took your stint, you stayed there, like, you gave it a shot, but it won't work out. I think that's fair. But
Maybe you should have to
I
go
just
to
think,
go to all the worst teams out there, get them a Super Bowl win. Sometimes that's who you are.
yeah, I just think that it's oddly like, I don't want to say it's like watching a dumpster fire, right? Because that's kind of disrespectful, but that's sort of like the mentality when it comes to watching those like underdog small market teams. Like this
Yeah.
past offseason with the NBA, Miami, Florida was killing it because in both basketball and hockey, they had an eighth seed that went all the way to the finals. They both lost, tragically, but it was like the first time or one of the first times in both instances where the bottom seed made it to the finals,
Yeah.
and it was like everybody wanted them to win. I feel like because it was like an underdog story,
Oh
and I
yeah.
feel like that's unless you have some sort of like Like with the NBA, I think it's more common to be a fan of somewhere that's not where you live, just because there's not quite as many teams. But I think there's that weird draw from like those underdog teams where you're like,
Right.
I really like these guys and they're really doing it. So that's what I'm gonna go for.
Okay. I think that's yeah. I think the underdog mentality is what keeps some of like you said, these small market teams alive.
Yeah. Except for Charlotte. The Hornets suck. They're the worst. Michael
Fucking
Jordan. Michael Jordan is from Charlotte and he sold them. That's how bad they are. Michael Jordan gave up.
He's like, I'm outie.
He literally made millions on that team though, because he
Frank,
bought
what are
it,
you doing? Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, MJ owns the team, valuable," and now he doesn't. He's like gone.
What happened to him? Like I hear how good he was, and obviously in basketball, and he tried baseball, failed. At one point, he did. I don't know if he did golf or that was just more of a recreational sport. And then he hasn't like done anything in forever. He's done like not even like sport wise. He hasn't done anything to cause an upstir in the media.
Yeah, he's just started getting rich. He's on his 38th signature shoe,
Jesus.
and they're like $200 a pair. And then at the same time, they'll sell the shoes he's already made, calling them retros, right? Jordan 1 retro, Jordan 3, 4, 5, whatever.
That's
Retro.
how you do it.
$200 plus, and he's getting all that money, dude.
That's how people make their money. Like streamers, they'll just take all their old content, put it on a loop, and put it out there, and just rake in the money. Like you have to be successful first to do it, but it's like doubling down.
Jordan was an interesting. He was like a first because, like, the original Jordans at the time were like exemplary in terms of like what technology they had in them, right? They were like really good basketball shoes to play in. But it's like now they're awful. Like the game's changed a lot, the technology has gotten better, but they looked really good. And like they're really iconic. But I would say for the most part, a lot of basketball shoes you wouldn't ever want to wear out because they don't really look all that attractive. They're good as hell at what they do, but a lot of them look really similar and they kind of look ugly when you're not in a uniform, I think. So it's like that weird, he owns the whole market when it comes to like streetwear and shoes because he like started it. He was the first.
Right. Damn. You're right. I can't find no flaw in your argument. I can't find no flaw in your argument. I can't fucking speak.
There's a couple. I would say like Air Maxes and Air Forces and all that have like they have like a weird hold. I'm trying to think. New Balance has a couple of shoes, but like really, there's no shoe that Adidas has like two shoes that are like in quotes iconic where people can like look at it and know the name.
Yeah,
But Nike is just.
I want to be
Nike
honest.
just owns it.
I know literally nothing about shoes. I go in, I find some decent pair that I know will last me a year or two, and I just buy them.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was rocking Pumas for a while.
Puma pants. Sorry. I don't know. I think I like to try and look good sometimes. You know, I like to spice up my outfits and have some sort of street style. As Caleb started doing that recently too, and he's all about the blazers, which I think Caleb's a little deep into that one, but
unfortunately,
yeah. It is interesting though, because like each sport has its own culture around it, you know?
Okay.
And it's like, okay, you watch baseball, and I think one of the most notable things with fashion is you'll see people wearing like chains, right? They got some really sick jewelry, and that's what baseball players sort of focus on.
Jewelry.
Football players.
I guess that. Yeah.
Football players aren't really like known for their pregame fits necessarily. Joe Burrow goes crazy with it, obviously, but they're not really they're not like known for fashion. They have these weird.
I mean, there's like nothing you can really take from a football like player's outfit and then like put it on the street. They're in pads and helmets and cleats. There's nothing you can just take that and go, oh, I'm gonna wear that in public. You can like
Yeah.
sport. All you can do really is sport your own team.
Yeah, and then basketball has this weird strong like hold because like from the foundation of it, it was a cheap thing to put in like poor neighborhoods, which is why because all the neighborhoods were predominantly black when it started, right? And that's why culturally it's so baked into what black culture is in America, right? And
Right.
so that being a part of black culture, styles, fashion, all that stuff, and then you get people like Jordan who influence fashion in itself, then basketball itself sort of pushes fashion trends and starts it. And then they started doing the thing where they can wear like street fits to the pregame walkthrough rather than wearing suits and ties. And
Right.
now it's like basketball as a sport influences fashion and stuff like that to a dramatic degree, which I think is crazy. Because at the end of the day, it's just a sport, right? But it's like a sport that everyone sort of knows, and everyone knows how to play the game,
Yeah.
whether they're good at it or not. So it's so weird, because what do you call it? Ratings wise, like viewership wise, nowhere close to being number one. Like I saw a stat when I was sort of doing some research before this that of the past 100 most viewed like sports things this
Right.
past year,
Yeah.
there was one college basketball game, zero NBA games. I want to say probably about 75% was just football,
Right. That
just
makes
professional
sense.
football.
Yeah.
There
Uh,
were 3 football matches, 2 gymnastics meets, and a bunch of college football.
I think.
NBA
uh,
not even cracked the top 100.
I think I have a small theory on that. I have nothing to back this up. I have no info. I think it's because there's too many NBA games. Like football, it's once a week, while like other sports like baseball, basketball, they play more periodically throughout the week. So it's like, oh, I missed a game. Don't worry, there's another 100 more that's coming. Whereas football, like you have a set amount. We get one match per week. You have to watch it, otherwise you missed it.
Yeah, I think that's true also. 17 game
And like
schedule,
gymnastics, I mean, how many gymnastic meets are there a year? I don't know. Like honestly, don't know.
probably enough where it shouldn't really beat out. Oh, like, what was it? Like, there was a playoffs game where, I mean, everyone knows about the Warriors versus the Cavs, right?
But yeah,
But this past playoffs, it was a rematch basically between LeBron and Curry, but it was in the Western Conference because it was the Warriors versus the Lakers, and it was like the first time that they played off in forever, but it's still like nobody watched it.
that's interesting.
It's just so weird, but I guess it makes sense. I think baseball has, I want to say 162 games, which is insane.
It is absolutely insane. Like if you go and you watch a game, unless it's the World Series, it means nothing. Like, oh, I watched a game when I was little. Oh, which game did you watch? I don't know. It's my team versus some other team. The outcome didn't matter whatsoever. Whereas like the Bengals, like I watched the Bengals Steelers game of 2003, and goes, oh dang, that only happened once or twice depending on the season.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I watched the Cardinals at Cincinnati, right? It's like, oh, when? Oh, it was in the middle of May. It's like, okay, which of the 5 games in a row that they played at that stadium at that time did you watch? There's like,
Right.
no idea. They just stay for like 3 days. They just play back to back to back. Which, if you want, I think that's why baseball is such like a such an easy thing to just go watch and then be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna leave, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not a big
It's not
extravagant
a once
thing.
in a
It's like,
lifetime opportunity. Not once in a lifetime, but like once a year opportunity. It's you can do whenever.
yeah, and it's like, oh, they were playing this team. Well, they either just played them yesterday or they're gonna play them tomorrow. You know?
I think from a baseball player standpoint, that's actually really cool because like if you really do enjoy baseball and it's your whole life, you get to play it almost every goddamn day of your life. You don't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty cool. I
But
think it's weird. I think NBA's 82 games. I would say almost that college basketball has like a better schedule in terms of like garnering viewership because obviously if you have more games, you make more money, even if each game gets less viewership, right?
Right.
But it's like college basketball is just kind of beautiful. There's two halves to it. And I think the reason why I don't like it is because I like to be able to like know who's on the team, know the players, know their tendencies, to sort of try and guess who's going to get the ball, what they're going to do. And in
Right.
college, it's so they just change all the time. So that's why I don't like it. But like it's two halves. You have a bunch of nobodies, right? Maybe some people are infamous, but like usually you don't really know a lot of people on your team. You're just rooting for them because that's the team, right? So no
Right.
stars, which to some people is really cool. They have a
But
lot of
yeah, it's kind
different
of like that. It's
rules.
like you could win. You don't know whether or not you're well. You don't know what the odds are. It's like anything could happen.
Yeah, and then I think their tournament, 'cause the NBA Finals is the same as baseball, right? 7 game series. So you have, I think, when it starts out, there's 8 playoff series, and then there's, is it 16? I could be wrong. It goes like 8 to 4, and then 2, and then it's the conference finals,
Yeah.
and then that happens on both sides, and then the conference finals, the champions of that play the finals, right? But it's like that's a lot of games. It's 7 games at most for every single series, and there's a lot of teams playing at the same time, which at the start it's kind of interesting because I can watch like 3 playoff games and like be excited, and then it makes the games feel more important. But it's like for the NCAA, you just can't miss a game if you want to know what happens, because
Yeah.
that's just wild. And they're trying an in-season tournament. They're taking inspiration from soccer, like the FA Cup is in the middle of the season,
Oh,
and
okay.
they're doing an in-season tournament.
Right.
And um it's kind of cool. They're trying to make it so that right now they're like trying to get it like weasel their way up. But right now the incentive is every single player gets $500,000 if they win, if their team wins. So each individual
Hmm.
player, which for like the starters and the rookies, that's a big deal, a lot of money. For like the big stars, it's not as much, but for like 80% of every team, it's worth it.
Hell
But
yeah.
apparently, they're playing with the idea of like, if you win this in-season tournament, um, you'll get an extra draft pick this next round, right? Like, literally, if you win the 23-24 um, NBA Cup, let's say, you
Hmm.
would get a first round pick in the 2024 draft, like an extra one, which would
Hmm.
be like the stakes are a lot higher then. Or it's like you get a salary exception. So let's say you decided I'm going to sign this extra star and I'm $50 million above the cap space, but if I win the NBA Cup, I'm no longer paying that taxes. It goes away. I get an exception. So the prizes are very interesting for what it could offer, but they're also toying with, because of tanking, which obviously in football is just accepted.
Right.
But Adam Silver is the NBA commissioner, and he is thinking about relegating a team from the NBA to the G League if they decide to tank,
Damn. All right.
which is extreme. But then it would allow G League teams, which are in really small markets, to be in the NBA and make a lot more money. And then there's a lot more competition, which I think is interesting. But somebody made an interesting point. The FA Cup has like every soccer team in Europe. And there's been a couple times where along the way, this soccer team, from I think it was this Premier League team that was playing in like a $2 billion stadium, right? They're all professional footballers. And
Right.
then it's this club team where everyone works in a factory and they just decide to play on the sidelines. That
Okay,
Premier League
you're
team,
on. Sorry, you're
like
cutting out for a second. You might want to say that again, so you don't.
because all the soccer teams are involved, there
Yeah.
was an instance where a Premier League team, which is essentially the NFL, NBA of like football,
Yeah.
was playing a team that was basically like kids in the backyard, basically like a bunch of factory workers playing. But
Wow.
because they did so well, they legitimately had a chance at winning the FA Cup, right? And so they're arguing that maybe the NBA should do something like that, where maybe they start with the G League teams, which is like the XFL,
Right. I've
and
actually.
then
Yeah.
then maybe it's like you get college sports involved, and it's like, could you imagine, like, let's say the University of Dayton plays and competes and they win the NBA Cup? Like,
Well,
that's crazy.
that would be that's insane. Yeah.
And then every single player gets $500,000. Like, are you kidding? Or $500 million? That's crazy.
You're right.
No one's saying no to that.
Oh, so like I don't know if like people like if officials have thought about that or if this was just a rumor that people that they should do it, that they do something like that where the worst team the NFL has to go back to the XFL, and like the best team in the XFL will take their spot and kind of like integrate it a little bit. I mean, it sounds like it'd be way too much going on. I don't think the XFL is nearly successful for that to work out for them, but that was an interesting thought.
Yeah, because that's the thing about football that sort of gets me. It's like you really can just do 0 throughout the entire season, piss off all of your fans. And it's like, and for what? Because one player doesn't even do that much necessarily on a football team. Like Joe Burrow's been good, and technically he was injured in the first season, so we'll never know. But he blew up when he got Jamar Chase, which is 2 players. And it's like one player isn't really going to do it. And I don't know anybody that's like, oh, this guy, CJ Stroud's going to be literally the next Tom Brady. There's just no way of knowing. There's no way of knowing, because Tim Tebow was supposed to be the next big thing, and he didn't transfer very well. But then it was like Joe Burrow wasn't even a starter at Ohio State for 3 years straight, and look at him. There's just no way of knowing. So it's just weird that they would even do that,
Right.
because the odds are there, but it's like it still happens. It just doesn't make sense.
The only this is off topic, kind of just popped in my head for some reason, but I mean it has to do with basketball. Did you see the theoretical future basketball airless one?
I have, and low key, I kind of want to get one.
I mean, it honestly looks pretty cool to be fun with. I've seen like the fears people have, like, oh, this is gonna change everything. And I'm like, yeah, but it'd be kind of cool. It'd be something different. I heard that they might try to put like a mesh over the ball. That way, it's still airless, but it won't be hollow. Like you won't feel the hollow points and all that stuff. I don't know. I think they should just go balls to the walls. Use that ball right now.
I don't know.
I know.
It's weird because from an aerodynamic point of view, when you put an object that's completely covered and then like perforate it the entire way, it does change a lot.
It does. Like, I thought they already tried to address that to make it all shoot the same. It's either that or they only were messing with the bounce. I don't know. They might just cover it still.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, unless you're doing like a half court shot, which I think a half court shot shouldn't be altered by the ball, truthfully. But I think like really the distance that it's traveling isn't really going to do a notable change unless you're doing like a full court shot, which kind of sucks. But I don't know, it is interesting. I think it's cool how technology's sort of going to that. And I think the biggest thing is like tires are going airless, or they're attempting it.
Right.
Just because the amount of resources that it's using is just so much. And to be able to like have something where, I mean, literally they can get that thing and grind it back up to the powder and print a whole other ball with it. Like if something
I've seen that technology. It looks pretty. I mean, it is in general looks sick. But have you heard the last time they tried to change balls, or not the last time, but one of the first times they tried to do this?
Oh yeah, it was like they made the super sticky leather, and
yeah, it was like the
fingers
Spalding
ripped up,
the synthetic ball. I heard that like people then went to like look at the balls and stuff, and like they looked at all the abrasions, and like it came up to kind of be like iffy, like they might just be saying it because they just don't like the ball. But yeah. I think the basketball players are a little full of it, but it still caused an upset.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing with them is they're just like this.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry, guys. My Discord closed, and that's how me and Gabe were talking. I'm going to try to entertain you, lovely, lovely folks, with my voice. Nothing but my voice. Mr. Gabe's professor, please don't fail him because Discord's being mean. Oh, I'm back. Yeah. All right, I don't worry. I told your professor not to fail you because Discord crashed.
Okay, that's good.
We're also at 45 minutes. I don't know how much longer you want to go. How much longer do you need to go?
I don't know. He said just talk till we're done. He said
I
he's
mean,
excited to listen to it.
yeah.
Shout out Will. Shout out Will if you made it this far.
Ew.
What was
Yeah,
I saying? Oh, I played with an indoor ball. I was outside, but it was humid and it like made my fingers really sticky to the ball,
Hmm.
and my fingers hurt. Like it felt like, I had scrapes on them. That was just a normal leather ball. So I think if they made it any stickier, that it could have easily done that, especially with how sweaty you get. But I
Right.
think the biggest problem was they're just like, oh, there's this new ball. Let us not talk to literally the professionals
Well, I
about any of
mean,
it.
what they
Nobody's
did,
gonna try it out.
I guess they let him try it out. They gave it to him like the season before. I was like, hey, get used to the ball before the season starts. And I guess like everybody didn't really whatever. Then the game started, and they're like, nah, fuck this, screw it.
Yeah. I mean, they introduced this one in a different way with it was the dunk contest.
Right. I think they specifically did that. I don't think they wanted them to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
I don't. I
Because
think it'd
it
just be.
would've-
Maybe they would do like not like actual games, but maybe kind of like just like smaller, like kind of for fun games. Like when the Bengals played someone in a basketball game a
Yeah.
while ago. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's much else to talk about at this point, so we might keep going or cut it short here. Whatever happens, happens. But
I mean,
um,
our last video was like an hour and a half. We can keep going. I only was able to come up with like 5 topics. This is going to just be more. They're really sporadic.
oh, you're fine. I was really thinking we would talk more about. I didn't know how much motivation you had when, you sort of became a fan of certain teams. So I didn't, because I know you're not super into sports.
Right. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to talk more or less? Or do you know any other topics you want to hit?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I did have something in my head, but has escaped me since then.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. You just want to hit some regular late night lads podcast then? Write down here 47 minutes. That way I can put in the description for any other people that don't want to listen to 47 minutes of sport talk, just in case. I have no idea what our how many the viewers, how much of their demographic, I should say, they were sports related.
Yeah, probably not a lot, and we're also not sports professionals, but that's okay.
Oh yeah.
You said it was 47 minutes. I'll email Will.
All right. I'll put in a description. Oh, should I say right here, like, Will, stop listening?
Yeah, I suppose. Well, Will, you're welcome to still listen if you want to, but that is the end of my school project.
Don't grade him for anything that comes next.
Yes, I'm not responsible for anything said. Okay, so immediately on to a new topic.
Yeah.
So I have the big room in my place right now.
Okay, yeah. Is it just a big room?
Yeah, well, there's the master bedroom with the small bathroom attached to it, and then there's the second room with the big bathroom attached to it, right?
Okay.
And so I want the big room because there's not enough closet space in the other one, and I like the extra space. I have a lot of stuff, and I really value the fact that the bathroom is attached. I would like to just take a shower and walk into my room, and not have to prep and bring my clothes and change in a small bathroom.
I mean, I don't, but I guess that would be nice.
But it's like that's what I want. But
I mean, like,
moving...
not like I say I don't want that. I just, as in, I don't by prepping. I just towel around the waist. I'm walking across the house. Oh, anyways,
yeah.
go on.
But okay, so we're moving on Friday or Saturday. We get access to the place tomorrow. But he's like, I kind of wanted the big room, but I really thought we had an agreement that I get the big room. And I even said I would pay him more money of rent a month. And then his response was like, I don't really care about that. Like, that's fine. That's whatever.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, chill. We're on the same page. I really don't know if we are. And like, truthfully,
Yeah.
it's the exact same layout, but the next place is bigger, and I really think that the guest bedroom is larger than it is here, and I think that the master bedroom is smaller than it is here, just a little bit. And that compounded with the fact that the living room is substantially longer or larger, he has a bunch of bookshelves in his room, and I don't have bookshelves in my room. But I was like, just put it in the living room. Like,
Okay.
our problems would be solved. I get my room,
Yeah.
and you get 2 bookshelves, but he doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't want to talk about it. So I could pull the passive aggressive route, and tomorrow when we get our keys, just start slowly moving shit from my closet to the other closet.
Walls do it.
I feel
not
like
gonna
that's a
stop
dick
you.
move.
I mean, it
But,
might
like,
be. I don't
how do
know. It depends on
how do I
he.
bring it up?
You could just say, "Yo, I need for clarification. What's this? What's happening?"
I suppose he's like literally never out of his room, right? And I like never get to talk to him in person, so I would most likely have to text him or just sort of move my shit into the big room, and then he probably wouldn't say anything.
You know, funny you say that. Remember when I was in Toledo, my second year, it
Mhm.
was a 5-person. It was actually a 6-person room, but there was 5 of us in there. And what it was like there was 4 bedrooms. 2 of them were 2-person bedrooms, and then there was like kind of like a main area with a bathroom, all that stuff. There was 5 of
Yeah.
us. I knew the person who lived in my room with me. I met the person who lived next to us once because he came in, introduced himself, said, "Hey, I smoke weed," and I went, "Okay, don't offer me none. I'll be okay. I'm not going to rat you out. I don't care. Just don't. I don't want it." I never met the other 2 people, and I left. I still have no idea who they were. I only know what they look like. I just knew one was a dick because
That
he
sounds
kind
like
of
a
sent a
great
message
arrangement.
saying that, "Hey, I have these classes. I need everybody to be quiet." And that's the only time I ever heard him talk. Not even like speak, but he put in a message. I don't know. That was not a good year of college for me. Or you.
It was also your last year. of
It was
college.
also my last year of college. Yes.
That was honestly kind of a crappy year in the sense that like everything was going wrong, and I was going up to Toledo a lot, and then you just sort of like left.
Yeah.
And not to say that you were representing my relationship at the time, but it did really suck when like everybody left
Yeah.
PG, and then I got cheated on, and then it was just like, oh, I still got Christian, and then Christian's gone.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It was just
I had good reasons to leave. It's not like I wanted to abandon you. It wasn't
well, I know
like, "Oh,
that.
I don't give
It's
a
just
fuck
like
about Gabe." Yeah. It was
I
just a
know.
bad
It was
time.
just like at the time I was like, I'm alone.
I'm
And
alone.
then you're really just like stuck up there is the thing. Nobody wants to drive there. There's just
No.
nothing there. It's so far away from everything. Even being up there, you can technically drive wherever you want, but it's like, is it worth it? Like, yes, I want to go to Columbus, but is it worth a 2-hour drive there? Minimum for the northwest corner? Or do I just value having the most mediocre time of my life and not spending 5 hours of my day in the car? And that's usually what it ends up being.
Right. It was a bad year. It was also what 2021 or 2020, so it was like almost it was a bad year for everybody alive.
Was it 2020? It was
2020 or
it was
2021, one of the
2020.
two. Yeah.
It was 20 into 21, I believe, which is weird because that's when I met Gwen. So that just feels like that's a long year, to be honest.
It went on for way too long.
A lot of stuff happened. Yeah, it
Yeah.
felt like it was longer than that time frame.
Well, hey, we'll switch up the topics a little bit. Have you seen the new Mario movie?
No, I was gonna watch it.
Fuck.
I was gonna watch it, but then we saw that we owned Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and Melissa had already seen the Mario movie, and I was gonna watch it, but then I didn't.
I just ended up watching the Mario movie yesterday with Danny Dubs and her family. It's a great
Mhm.
movie. I enjoyed it.
Really?
Yeah, like it wasn't like
it-
fantastic to like with the point where it was like best movie of the year up with like the classics, but it was just a good movie to watch. It's like a Rango almost. Not like Rango's up there with Rango, but like it was pretty close.
It only takes one bullet.
You ain't got the nerve.
Try me.
I guess since we can't talk about that movie, that night I also absolutely betrayed Danny Dub's sister in Uno. I felt so bad afterwards, yet so awesome.
You didn't realize how bad that sounded, right?
We were playing Uno.
Betrayed Danny Dubs and then
No.
immediately mentioned her sister.
No, Danny
like,
Dub's
"Excuse me?"
sister. I was like specifying whose sister I betrayed.
Okay, but it just.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
just saying,
Okay.
at the start,
We were playing
I was like,
Uno.
"Christian?"
Shut up. We were playing Uno. I had 3 cards left, and then she was like, "Hey, how many cards you got?" So I could put 2 cards right in front of each other, and the third one, so it looked like I only had 2 cards. And then she's like, "Okay," and I played 1 card, and she goes, "Uno," and I put the card up, and I showed that I was still 2 cards, and her jaw dropped, and I felt so bad. She was so sad that I would do that to her.
That's how the game.
It's just how it be. I ended up like winning that game, and I won overall because they kept score of all the points, and like it was a win. It was a dub for me, not for
Good
anybody
dub.
else. Danny Dubs did not get the dub that day.
That's just how it goes.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question for you because we're watching the show, which is crazy.
Yes.
So there's a situation, right? And Gwen and I had a disagreement about who was right in the situation. So basically, there's this girl Marisol. She
Wait,
wrote
hold
this
on.
book.
Before you tell me this, do not tell me who's saying what. Like what side, what you're agreeing with, what she's agreeing with. I'm just going to give you my flat out opinion.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay. Just make sure.
So there's this girl Marisol. Basically, she wrote a book about a whole bunch of shit that went down in her life with her and her friends. Okay. So it's all autobiographical, but she uses different names in the book so that you don't know who's who. But basically, she writes this book, and it's getting produced by these people, right? And she's dating like the head producer, right? The guy is sort of in charge. But there's this director that seems to be like the equivalent of Steven Spielberg, right? He's very beloved.
Oh, okay.
So he's just like, I don't like that it's set in Beverly Hills. It's cliche. I think that the maid should be hot, this and that. And she was just sort of like upset. She's like, that's just not how it happened, right? It's not a fake book. Like, this stuff all happened. And then later on, the guy's like, I don't think it's believable that Marisol would do all these things, right? Like, would a woman really do that? And she's like, oh, it'd be more believable if it was a man. And the director's like, that's a great idea. We'll make Marisol a man.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. And so Marisol's pissed. And so she calls her boyfriend and is like, tell him to stop, right? So they agree to make Marisol a woman. But then the guy was like, the writer for this movie sucks, said by the director. I think we should get another one. And so Marisol, who's the writer for the movie, looks at her boyfriend, Peter, as if to be like, we'll get rid of him, right? Just fire the Steven Spielberg here and just find another director. And so he lets Marisol go as the writer.
Oh, damn. All right.
And then, okay, they get back home. Peter tries to come to apologize, and Marisol is basically like, obviously you put work before me, so I know where your priorities lie. I don't know where we are. Like, I don't think they broke up yet, but they're like about to, is what it seems like.
Right.
Who's right, who's wrong?
Damn. Okay. Shit. I mean, obviously, I think that the Steven Spielberg character is wrong. I think the creator, whoever wrote the book and all that, the creator, should have full authority what gets shown and what doesn't show, because that's her shit. I don't know. I know it doesn't happen, but I think it's how it should happen. Man, but it's their fault for just bringing their relationship into the workplace. It never works out, and obviously it didn't work out for them here.
Yeah.
I think
My
almost was he is in the shit, I don't know. I don't think she'd be fired because, she's obviously the creator and shit, the writer. But I think she has too much invested. Maybe he was right. I don't know. Damn.
I think that he wasn't in the wrong. Like, I think Marisol was in the wrong for expecting him to just do that for two
Because,
reasons. First off, it's work. Like,
yeah.
it's just work. Second, though, is I feel like for movie production, it seems like it's such a political atmosphere where if you fire Steven Spielberg and replace him with some nobody director because your girlfriend who wrote the book that you're deciding to produce asked you to, you're blackballed, right?
Yeah,
Like, you
he
just
was
don't have
put
a
in
career.
an awful situation from the get-go. I guess it was either I think his two choices were probably let the movie bomb or have a pissed off girlfriend. I guess he probably made the right choice. But it's still just a shitty situation we put in.
Yeah. She really thinks that Marisol is in the right and that Peter shouldn't have chose work over her because that's what he did. And I was just like, I think that's dumb.
I mean, everyone wants that perfect ending where the underdog, the creator, whoever that person is, lifted up and goes through everything and is perceived to be a god or a goddess, while the hungry business owner takes the fall because he's a greedy business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Hold on, you ready for some shit?
Yeah.
Do you know Hong Woo Suk?
Come again.
Oh shit. Hold on. Hold on, everybody. I'm having technical difficulties. I unplugged my microphone, or my headset. All right, I'm back. I guess I never left, but I wasn't able to hear. Hong Woo Suk was a South Korean specifically legend. He was a scientist. If anybody doesn't know who Bobby Broccoli is, he made a whole video. He actually made 2 videos. He does really good animations. Not like it's like he takes all this information. He makes this really great video where you can easily digest it and you know what's happening. He doesn't just throw a bunch of names at you in events. He really makes it amazing video. I recommend going to watch it. But so Huang is this scientist who does with genetics and cloning and shit. And South Korea made him up bigger than Bill Nye. Like, the entire country of South Korea idolized him for being everything South Korea should stand for. Mm-hmm. And so, like, the whole debate with because the whole thing that every cloning scientist wanted to do was get stem cells, human embryonic stem cells. That way, that can cure a bunch of diseases and whatnot. And then it was kind of like, US was like, human cloning, our religion, which was mainly Christianity, says you probably should not do that for religious reasons. So we're kind of like iffy on it. The South Korea was like, our religion is whatever, which means we believe in reincarnation. Let's greenlight everything this has to do. And they took this guy up, and he ended up as he's like, who's a star? Everywhere he went, he was constantly putting up videos. He was in the media. He was all this shit. This is happening. I don't know. It was when George W. Bush wasn't president, so it was not terribly long ago. And he has like a bunch of studies that came out. The first study, everybody was like, "Wow, how'd you do this?" And he was just come up with these ridiculous stories that made South Korea look amazing. In the second study, everybody was kind of like, no, wrong. We're going to go look at this. And they just broke down everything. Europe and America have the leading science journals, and a bunch of reporters came in, and everybody kind of took what they were doing, and they were like, you're lying about all your results. These are false. And then South Korea people were so idolized by them, they didn't just like, oh, he's obviously a terrible person. They went, don't you disrespect our man like that. Obviously, you don't know what you're doing. And then they kept digging deeper and deeper. And to get human embryonic cells, stem cells and stuff, you kind of need egg donations from human women. And it's kind of a process to get. It can have some risks to it. And they found out that he was like really kind of not really demanding, but it's like, hey, all you girls that work for me, you need to go give me your eggs. Go donate your eggs to me. And then, but since that's the kind of Korean mindset was like work, 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 they were like, oh yeah, that's okay. And then they were like, we found out that the greedy politicians that were kind of supporting him, that they were bribing women, like homeless people, which is a big no-no, and they're bribing him, another no-no, to go donate eggs. And the ladies thought they were donating to like couples that can't have kids, so they were misinformed, they were bribed, and they were not informed of the complications that could arise. And like 1 out of 5 patients reported some complication that they have to this day. And they found all this stuff out, and like Hwang is an awful human being and all this stuff, and he was so idolized that all the Korean people were like, no, he's not, he's okay. And it's just insane. Like the government had to step in and say, you cannot ever touch human stem cells again in your life. And there was riots and shit. People were threatening to kill all the interviewers and the girls who came out and said, yes, I was forced to give up my eggs. And they were getting death threats. Like, how could you dare say anything against Hwang Woo-suk? He's the greatest person South Korea has ever had. And it's just a very crazy story. And you will never get that in America because we only care about sports and stuff. But I don't think there's ever been a scientist we idolize to the point where we don't see any faults in them.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm actually learning in one of my classes about collectivistic versus individualistic societies, and a lot of Asian cultures are collectivistic, which sort of means like Elon Musk, right? Half the people think he's amazing, half the people hate him. Same thing like Zuckerberg, Bezos, modern day.
Even Mr. Beast, he would go and do stuff, and half people like, oh, he's the Antichrist. That was going on for a second.
Yeah, but it's like, I think that sort of comes from individualistic cultures where it's like, I have my own opinions. I hate this guy. Even if it's just because someone else likes him, you're like, I hate him, right? He's a bitch.
Right.
But I think in like Korean culture, probably, since it's a part of like the greater Asian cultures that are a part of that collectivistic society, when the government's like, look at this guy, it's like, I love this dude, right? I love him, he's the best. And makes like an O'Hare type of situation.
You're right.
Everybody's singing praise for him, and up until the end of the movie, loses some credibility there when it comes to the real situation. But it's like, for a while, it's like, I don't care about this. Why? Yeah. No, O'Hare would never do that. He's literally the best. Are you kidding me? Oh, he's taking embryos from homeless people. Don't care.
They didn't care that he faked his information. They found out that one of his first great achievements that he cloned, I think it's been a cow, and they found out that he faked it. And I'm like, it's okay. He's Hwang. He's Hwang Woo-suk. We love him. But that video by Bobby Broccoli, that's his name on YouTube. He goes in depth. Like, he probably has 3 to 4 hours on he has a bunch of subtopics he does. This one was really, I don't know. He had this and another one I loved. And he goes into so many details politically and science, and he just explains it in a great way.
You gotta love how there are some YouTubers who are able to produce videos that, like, rival that of what newspapers can write. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, they also have 4 hours of just talking to you to do that. But he has this 3D animation. So he doesn't, he doesn't just put up like what's happening on there. So like for this one, he had like a not a poker table. It's kind of like it's like a casino style table, and like over here he had like each individual square. He kind of had like the days going by, and then like below that he had a bunch of squares like where cards would go, and he was showing like the people. So like it would like kind of go towards this person, like this is what the person we're talking about. He'll put up the paper clips, and like he was just had this amazing thing going on. And then he had another video about there's a guy also not terribly long ago who faked elements, because that was like the whole thing was people were racing for elements between us and Russia and Germany and stuff. And he started like he faked a bunch of elements. He got caught, and like the whole thing that they had going was they were using I couldn't even tell you what type of graph, but it's just very in depth and it's just awesome. Bobby Broccoli, everybody.
That's legit. I like oh god. Ugh. I like those videos that are like really, really obscure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, when I was in Colorado, summer 21,
Yeah.
I played basketball with my RA for a while, right? And he decided that he was gonna have COVID, which means that I was locked in a room by myself for 2 weeks. And since I was the only person that like was with him, I
Yeah.
was the only person affected by except for him,
Right.
which it was great. Not really, but I was just like in my room all the time. I had people visiting me at my window. I was a trending hashtag actually for like a couple weeks. I don't know. It was a great time because everybody in the camp knew me, and I was just sort of stuck. And so even like some of the tenants at the time that like saw me and knew me were like saying hi with some of the staff. It was so funny. But in that time, I watched through a YouTuber's entire library. It's called JCS Criminal Psychology, and
Right.
all of it. The crazy thing is, all of his videos are like at half long.
You cut out.
There's
I'm
one that
sorry.
was all of his videos are at least an hour and a half. Like one was 2 hours and 51 minutes.
Oh wow.
And he literally just goes in and sort of explains cases and how people are acting and why it's the way it is. And sometimes he'll cross-reference it with other cases that have been concluded. And it's just insane. Half his stuff got taken down by YouTube. I forget why. But it's like,
A big thank you.
it's just so intriguing. So I got down that rabbit hole. And it's amazing. There's also Petscop too. You know a little bit of that.
I know a little bit of Petscop. Yeah. Also
Which
interesting.
It's such a mystery because
There is
the
a
dude-
bunch of mystery. Have you heard of a cicada something, where it's like this online group made a very difficult like online puzzle that people had to solve, and they'll get to the very end, and then if you solve the puzzle, you can find like a barcode, and they only accepted like a few people at a time, and if they passed all the secret testing that they did, they would like get in the secret industry. Nobody knew who they were. All they knew was like there's a group called Cicada, and that was it. And they made puzzles for the smartest people, as they said they were trying to find.
That's crazy.
It kind of is.
There's also the oh gosh. I must be tired.
You
There was
tired?
that-
Late night lads.
It is late night lads. There was that card deck that Neil Patrick Harris made, but like when he originally made it, it was like there was a puzzle to be solved within the deck of cards, and the first person to do it got some sort of prize. I don't know what they got. Actually, I'm gonna look that up. It was crazy though, like how in depth it was.
I'm trying to put up a.
Neil Patrick Harris.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to put up the video, but it does not want to, for some reason, capture it. I'm trying though.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to show the one video I was talking about, like the animation style, but it's just not capturing for some reason. I don't know why. I do this. Do this. Okay. It shows the window I'm trying to capture, but just won't do it. All right. Just work for me.
What are you trying to figure out?
I'm trying to get this window to capture. It's okay. I saw something not terribly long ago. I thought it was funny. Are you thinking about vampires before Jesus came around? You know, it's probably, if vampires were to exist, he might have came before Jesus, and they're just chilling, doing their thing, turning people, and then one day, all of a sudden, like these weird wooden T's, these lowercase T's, just start hurting them for some reason. They don't know, no idea why. Like they're like fucking in Saudi Arabia. All of a sudden, like what the fuck?
That's kind of similar to the post this guy was like, how did people discover mushrooms? Right? You can pick up 3 mushrooms, right? And 3 guys would eat them. One of them tastes like meat. The other one's making this dude trip balls. The other guy's dead. And it's like they kept eating them.
Gavin Free, like the Rooster Teeth, I'm not a fan of them anymore, but they used to have podcasts and stuff that are good. Gavin Free would have a bunch of stupid thoughts like that. He says, how do you think people found out where the brain was? Like how is there? You think there's like 2 cavemen, one guy lost an arm but he still lives, the other guy lost a head and he died, and he goes, huh, why that?
I guess it's a fair question. I really don't think they were thinking about that type of stuff, though. I can't lie.
I mean, you know, they're kind of Ooga Booga dead.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, like, you're telling me, like, if they both ate berries and then one of them died, he'd be like, oh, them berries bad. I don't know. I do not think so.
Maybe he's just kind of like, he shot himself to death. Weak.
Yeah, that's exactly how it went.
Obviously, he doesn't have my sort of blood going through him.
Yeah. What's that? You know that older guy that tells like the stories. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. Oh, Dave, always knew you were a bit weak.
What? Shit, I'll start typing. I don't know where I'm typing at. Any stories you want to tell?
I don't think so. I'm sharing the link with you so you know who I'm talking about, by the way. I don't know if they're going to be able to see it, but it's going to Discord.
They might be able to. For some reason, it's being so fucking weird.
I don't think I have any stories to tell. I think I
Well, we can go for childhood stories, but we're also getting to the end. We're at an hour 15.
I think we just sort of leave it after you obviously watch the
I think I don't know they're going to be able to see it. I don't want them to see it. It's saying no.
Do you know, at the end of the day, you'd be stepping over kids just to get out the room. Oh no! There's Melanie. That's a shame. She was really nice. There's Dave. Hard luck, Dave. Always knew you were a bit weak.
Always knew you were a bit weak.
I don't know what the context of that is. Like, actually, no
That
idea.
guy, you always see him like in just like small memes and stuff. I have no idea what his full-time thing he does.
Story time. Like, that's his whole thing.
Story time?
Yeah, he tells stories from this or that, and I mean, he's not bad at it, to be fair. I think it's mostly for kids, but I think a lot of adults find it super funny.
I mean, he got popularized. You ever think about like when you know that one really old guy who was a meme? He kind of looks like he was like when you're dying inside, but you have to put on a facade. And he's like some old guy like smiling, but his eyes are like very sad. You can tell. Do you ever know that he became popular? You ever think about it? It was not terribly long ago, like maybe a couple years. It was like hold on, let me see if I can find it. Oh, it's this guy. Go to Discord. Well, hold on, let me hit copy image. Paste the image. This guy. If it sends. There we go.
Oh, this guy. I know
Why
what you're talking about.
do this? My thing is fucking frozen. Maybe that's my problem. My thing's like frozen. You know, there's a chance that all this is actually showing and I just can't help it. That's interesting.
That's fine.
Who knows? I have no idea. It's just wait, and he'll like trying to hide like the podcast cover, but it's still just popping up. It's just there. I do not care for OBS. I mean, it's nice to record stuff sometimes, but it is pissing me off most of the time. All right, we wanna wrap things up? You wanna keep going?
I think we're gonna wrap.
Wrap it up. All right. Thanks everybody for watching the Late Night Lads podcast. Thank you, Mr. Will, for giving Gabe a good grade. I know you already did it, so you have to now.
If you stayed
Bye.
this far.